Five, four, three, two, one.
Hello, willkommen, bienvenue, konnichiwa. It's time for the Amish Inquisition yet again, episode 148 on Sunday the 6th of September. Je suis Amish Phil.
Kite Amish Ben.
And I'm Amish Matt.
Oh, boo.
Okay, this week's guest is an author and a podcast host. It's called Andrew Schatkin. You can go to shatkinshow.com for more information. The links will be in the show notes as usual, and it's SCHATKIN. Anyway, it'll be in the episode title, so just look at that and put it in Google. Anyway, welcome to the show, Andrew.
Well, this is the thing. I'm a person who likes to dialogue with people.
Yeah.
That is to say, Phil, I like to hear out a person's opinions and views. I like to respond to it. And I'd like to suggest some things that I might want to address with you.
Right. Go on.
Okay.
One of them is I suggested previously, you may not agree with this, but I think a lot of people do see a problem in our educational system in the United States. I think it's bad.
Okay.
I mean, let me give you an example of what I mean. I'm not an arrogant person. I mean, there's all kinds of people doing all kinds of things in this world, you know?
Yeah.
And there's people with no books, can't read, who probably doing things that I could never do, such as playing baseball and making $20 million a year. So, you know, I'm not going to say I have all the answers in this respect. But let me give you some examples of what I mean. 3 examples of what I consider essential basic knowledge that people don't have anymore. One of them had a person that I worked with who had an advanced degree, a law degree. I have a law degree. And this person never heard of John Milton. Now, I'm not saying you have to read it, you know.
No.
It's a leading English poet, I think, you know, for many people. He would be seen as an essential historical figure. But this person never heard of him. This person now had a college degree, but had an advanced academic degree. Of course, that goes to show you. Let me say this to you guys. I don't think degrees make people particularly have greater intellect than people who don't have them. I don't think so.
No.
What do you think?
I think it's just sort of a representation of a level of education, isn't it?
Yeah, but it doesn't make the person's intellectual ability greater than a person who doesn't have that education.
Agreed.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
No.
And I can give
like
some very good examples of people look, in past times, let's get the book straight. People didn't go to school at all. I don't think so. And particularly in America, I mean, like Abraham Lincoln, he shot out 4th grade. I've looked at his writings. They're fantastic. I mean, this guy was a very bright guy, and yet he was able to produce this work having gone to 4th grade. Do you have an explanation for that?
Well, I mean,
Lived experience, isn't it? You know, he, like all of us, are a product of our environment. So there is value, I think, to a robust education, but there is also a hell of a lot of lived experience that education doesn't teach you directly. School, college doesn't really go into that level of detail that a lived experience gives a person.
So what do you think that I think my impression, I didn't live then. I mean, I've only had a limited lifespan and I have limited experience and knowledge, but I mean, it seems like at that time when I'm talking about Lincoln, I also have a book, The Lincoln-Douglas Debates. these people did not go to school, as we would understand it. They may have completed third or fourth grade, maybe. Maybe they learned to read at home or something, I don't know. And yet those debates revealed to me extremely advanced literate people. And yet in today's world, I hate to say it, but that kind of thinking is not really around on the media. When you hear people speaking, you don't hear them speaking with detailed thought. Do you hear much thought?
It depends where you look. I think one of the advantages that we have today through mediums like podcasts and YouTube is that if you're willing to look for it, you can find lots of very good information. You can listen to people who speak incredibly eloquently again about any subject that you would care to look into. So I think we do have that advantage now. It's just that you seem to be insinuating that the education system as it stands.
Well, the issue is, number one, is going to college necessary? Does it really accomplish what people want to happen when they go there? I'm not sure it's needed. I think that people can do a lot of things very effectively without going to college.
So would you replace college with something else?
I don't know. It's hard to say. First of all, there's so many issues in American society, Phil. American society is about money and commerce.
Yeah.
That is what drives people. That's our value system. Don't you think?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so college is money. It is professors earning money. It is all sorts of people in those institutions earning money. It is getting money from people to pay to go there. Maybe that's what's really going on, rather than the object may not be learning, but it may be getting money. No?
Yeah. So you would you advocate more of a sort of learning on the job basis?
I'm not sure. I don't think for most jobs college is necessary. No, I don't think so.
The way I see it is that getting a college degree, it shows that you're able to learn at a certain level, a level that's higher than high school. And then that, therefore, is a way of streaming kids into the more specialized, maybe more mentally demanding jobs, such as, you know, I don't know, doctors or lawyers. That sort of thing.
Well, you notice, I think you're right that education, college education beyond high school probably improves people, their functioning. I think you're right about that one.
Yeah. Whether it's good value for money is a completely different question, isn't it? And certainly,
it is.
Certainly in your country, I think it's pretty out of control as far as the fees and the debt that students have to undergo.
Are you in the UK?
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. How does education work in the UK? In the United States, we have a very large private sector concerned with education. And as I said to you guys, in the United States, I believe that those colleges are businesses. At least they are in the United States.
They are here now as well.
What?
Yeah, they were recently, well, I say recently, probably like the turn of the century, or just before the turn of the century, and they were changed from public institutions. I think most of them now are public limited companies, basically. So they're not allowed to make a profit, I don't think.
In your country, it's not a profit system?
No, they can't make a profit. They can't make a profit, I think, if I'm correct. But they charge for fees, and you have to take on debt, basically, to get yourself through university level qualifications. And we're talking, I think from memory, it's about £9,500 a year for 3 years.
You're enlightening me. I'm very interested. in the UK, the higher education is not that money connected.
I think it's more so, isn't it? It's certainly more so than it used to be. The thing is, if you go back like 50 years, it was quite a limited number of, there was more limited number of university placements. We call them universities rather than colleges. But particularly under Tony Blair, around the turn of the millennium, there was a big push. The Labour government wanted 50% of students to go to universities. And I would say since that period, we've seen an expansion in university placements, and then that justifies the universities having to increase the money that they need. And it used to be free 50 years ago. You were paying.
It was?
It was free. Yeah.
It was free.
Very few, so a much smaller percentage of students went on to university. It might be 10% at a guess 50 years ago, but it was free. Whereas today, you essentially, it's like a graduate tax system. You borrow the money and then you pay, once you earn over a certain income threshold, you start paying back your debt.
So in your country, in your system, that was 50 years ago. It was 10% that went to university. I'm really interested in this. So your vocational system, it worked all right. I mean, people, those 90% that did not go to university obtained employment, correct?
Yeah, in the main.
But let me ask you this. Do you think I have not lived in the UK. I don't have enough knowledge to make too much of a comment. But do you believe the former system was an elite system where only certain people who went to certain maybe public schools got into universities?
I think the whole thing started as an elite system. I mean, back in the very, very early days, you would only have these elite colleges and universities, Oxford, Cambridge, and they spread out to the red brick institutions. And then as we go through the 40s, 50s, 60s, you end up with polytechnic institutions, new builds, and they're all now under the university umbrella. As part of what Phil was saying, this kind of education for all and trying to get as many people as possible into these buildings we call universities to do these degrees. And that's kind of where we are today.
Well, do you think that former system, which unlike the system in the United States, where has developed into a system where everybody goes to a university. It's universal education. You know, that's our system. Our system in the United States is a very I don't know if you've lived here. Probably your country is less so. It's a very egalitarian system. Namely, I'm not sure it's true, but we take the position that everybody is equal intellectually. I think that's true in the United States, isn't it? Don't you have the impression that's how our ethos egalitarian? Don't you think?
We don't know too much about the American education system. We're hoping you can enlighten us as well today. But are you saying that there is a place available for every student in a university?
Well, let me put this way: the entire culture in the United States, and I'm not sure it's valid. Let me put it that way, guys. I'm not sure it's true. It is very much focused on equality in the United States. I'm not sure that is a valid setup. I think that I think there's political equality where people have an equal vote.
Right.
That is equality. That is the equality. I think that's valid. That's intact. But I don't think that everybody is equal. No. I'm not equal. I'm not equal to a lot of people.
You have equality under the law as well, don't you?
Right. I'm not equal to Albert Einstein. I'm not equal to a lot of people.
No.
So the idea of everybody being equal, what do you think of that idea? It's a nice idea.
Yeah, it is a nice idea, and you know, like Phil says, as long as you have equality under the law, I think that's probably the main thing. But in reality, yeah, and I'm not as clever as, you know, other people, and some people aren't as clever as me.
Thanks,
you
Matt.
know, yeah. I meant Phil was cleverer than me. You were stupider than me, Ben.
Yeah, that's right.
But
Yeah.
do you think
Are
you? I don't have a problem with recognizing that I am not equal to
Yeah.
many people in the world. I'm not equal to a leading research for science in Oxford, maybe, or I'm not equal to a lot of people.
That's where happiness lies, Andrew. I think once you realize, you know, your place, and you become comfortable in that, you stop striving for the unattainable, you become a lot happier, I think.
Well, so what have you been to the United States?
Very briefly.
Yeah, I've been to
So you didn't get a sense of how things work here in terms of this, what I just mentioned. It's, we have a very egalitarian, maybe it's good, maybe it's bad. For example, is the culture in the UK, is it more have a tradition of a elitist culture, more so than perhaps the United States?
It depends who you ask.
I think in political circles, you could maybe make that argument.
Yeah.
So
class, you would say, wouldn't you? It's like definitely a hangover from the class system, I would say.
Do you think most people, do you think that there are more fixed classes in the UK than the United States? For example, I mean, you obviously, if you, first of all, even in the United States, if you're born into a wealthy family, you have greater chances. You know, it's going to be easier for you.
Yeah, the same applies everywhere, I think.
It does, really, yeah.
What
do you think of that? Do you think that's fair?
Yeah, definitely. I would agree. You know, I think you probably have more opportunity, don't you? You know, there's more options available to you if there's money.
There are more options.
Internships would be an example of that, wouldn't it?
But won't you, if you have more money, isn't that going to pave the way for you getting into the kind of educational institution that will lead you to better jobs and a better future? I mean, money is going to immensely help you.
I think if you have enough money to be able to be buying scholarships and influencing your education in that way, you potentially don't need that education to get into the elite job specialism that you want to do. It becomes almost irrelevant. You could hop, skip, and jump over your entire education, really, and just land as a CEO of some subsidiary of Daddy's business empire.
Well, in the United States, I'm not sure, it may be true everywhere, really. I'm sure it is, that our political leaders are every one of them are extremely wealthy.
Right.
They are. So that's how you get there. Correct? That's the entree? No?
Well, it seems to be, isn't it, that, I don't know if this is true of Trump, but is it not? I've heard that whoever has the biggest budget for marketing normally wins the race to be president.
Well, I think in the United States, I'm not sure how it works in your country or other countries. I think the money is the entree to political leadership and political positions. You come from those circles, and that's how you get in, and that's how you get those positions. And I believe that's true. And I don't think, despite that, we all like to think that we can get anything we want, you know, in American society or other society, but it's not true. It's not. I mean, unless you have a lot of money, you are not getting into political office, period.
Is that something to do with how the main two parties are organized and how the mechanics of the parties work?
I think that parties are first of all, to run a political campaign is very, very expensive.
Even at a small level, is it?
Small,
Like a
it's very
state level?
expensive. You have to advertise. You have to have money to get into the media. And so unless you have those funds, you are not running for office.
Right.
Now, maybe in the past, maybe you didn't need that much money. I don't know.
You just had to have a good idea.
I think so. Also, there wasn't this thing with the media. I don't know when it started exactly, Phil. This stranglehold of the media in our mutual cultures. But I think there was a time when things didn't work that way. There was no before radio, okay? Let's put it that way. Before TV, radio, and computers, I think that it was hugely different. I think a lot of people were able to get into positions and jobs without funds, without a lot of money.
Going back to the time before the mass media, was it not just a case that it was maybe the press barons who pulled the strings and
in a sense, it was the media at that time and that society that I didn't live then, but I'm absolutely convinced it was based on print.
Yeah.
It was based on newspapers. It was based on short stories. It was based on all kinds of things like that. And that's how knowledge was disseminated. That's how things worked. I think people read more in the past because they had no choice.
Yeah, they had to. Yeah.
Yeah. Unless, and maybe that's why people read less now because they have other options.
Yeah, and it's a lot of the things that have replaced reading, I would describe as maybe passive activities.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah,
Where,
images like TV images and cinema. And,
yeah,
yeah, it is passive.
they don't require a great deal of effort, and reading, especially reading something difficult, can be mind bending. It can
Well,
give
that's
you a
the
headache.
issue in today's world. I think you're hitting the point, Phil, that when people don't read, first of all, people don't read that much in the United States. I can't say what it's like in the UK, but not all that much. And I think one reason is the attention span has lessened to extremely limited attention span because of social media, and because of other forces forcing themselves on people, on their minds, on their sight. These images, which you just described, the result is that I don't think it's not they can't read, it's that their attention span is so limited because of our culture. And then they can't do it.
Yeah, the other thing is that sometimes reading requires a lot of investment, doesn't it, in time for the payoff.
Yes.
It's not like watching a 30-minute Simpsons episode.
Yeah, that's right.
You can read.
You believe that you can learn anything from watching those passive images?
I learned everything I know from The Simpsons.
I think you can. There's documentaries, isn't there, where you can learn something, you can glean some information from.
But when you look at an image, is your mind exactly working in relation to that image? What do you think? I don't think so.
I think it
you
is.
can tune in. First of all, you can tune in and tune out. With
Mhm.
television image, you can go and get something to eat. You can look at it or tune out of it, right?
Yeah. To be fair, though, Andy, I've found myself tuning out of a book and having to go back and reread the 3 or 4 pages previously. I don't know if that's an indictment on my own attention.
Well,
span.
let me ask you this, because I believe I have an issue in this respect, and it has occurred to me sometimes I read those older books, Crime and Punishment or Moby Dick, whatever they might be, and I have sort of figured out that much more was demanded of the reader in those books than in our present society. Question is, was there fewer people? Was there a more elite reading public in past times? Maybe. Or do you think they simply had more time or something?
Depends how far back you go. I mean, if you go back far enough, literacy rates were pretty terrible in our countries, weren't they?
They were.
That's something we do have, sort of the modern universal education system to thank, that at least, you know, you would hope that literacy rates should be close to 100%. They're not 100%, sadly, because people...
What are they? When you talk about literacy, what are you really talking about? Reading a newspaper headline?
Just reading
a
and writing.
menu?
Having the ability to read and write.
But how far has it developed that a person can, this literacy which you just described it, I think a lot of people in past times, you're right, I think they were illiterate. Yeah, I think they were. But I just want to say this, that the literacy today is of a very basic kind. It's reading, as I say, it's reading a menu. It is reading a headline on a newspaper. Isn't that really what what our literacy has really come to?
I'd agree. Yeah, in the main, I think people read a lot less because, like you said, there's so much competition for our attention, isn't there? Which didn't exist 50 years ago. And I think the schools could do more, maybe, to try and... But you see, I remember when I was at school, I used to hate reading. And, you know, through my teens, my 20s, I never really read much. It was only when I probably got into my late 20s I rediscovered reading and found a passion for it.
Well, let me just want to get your sense, tap your mind on this. The books that I just referred to, which I think are significantly more complex than our present society projects to people. You agree with that? Those books, those older books?
Crime and Punishment, yeah.
Crime and Punishment or Moby Dick, whatever you might name. I just gave two examples. I mean, they were more demanding on people's thinking than today.
As in the authorship of the books. So if we compare like Dostoevsky with
that's what I mean.
E.L. James or someone, some modern.
Yeah, well, that's the issue. What is going on? Did those people, were they smarter? Was it a more elite reading public? Were there less illiterate people and a small number of people that read it all? What do you think? There must have
been a smaller number. There must have been. The books weren't available for everyone in ye olde days, purely because, like you say, not everyone could read, and the books were written by these handful of, I guess you could say, literary elites who were able to write and used it to almost show off, I guess, and that shines through in making those comparisons between, you know, Dostoevsky and some of the modern tripe that's available. And
well,
not
in other
all
words,
modern
you think
books
that
are awful, but
the society, there was a limited number of people that were able to read.
Yeah, so you had a smaller consumer base than today.
But were these books, those books I just described to you, our culture in the United States, and maybe it's true in the UK, books are produced by people who want to make money with them. But at that time, do you think that was true, Dan? Those kind of books I described? Was it a money issue?
No.
Not by the sounds of it, no.
You don't think so?
To a lesser degree.
Yeah, it depends, doesn't it, on the individual circumstances of the author. You know, there's plenty of aristocrats in old England, weren't they, that were bankrupt and need to make a few extra pennies or whatever. But yeah.
So you don't think the books I described were moneymakers?
Well, I don't know. I wouldn't be able to say what the sales were at the time, but subsequently, they've probably made a lot of money, haven't they?
I think at the time, probably not. These would have been manuscripts, I guess, passed around between these people who were within this literary elite circle,
Right.
And maybe not even sold at all until perhaps decades, maybe centuries later in some cases.
So you think I'm just trying to figure this thing out of what was going on. It's very hard to reconstruct the past. I haven't lived then, very difficult. It's true. But I think you're right that people who wrote these books, it was not a financial enterprise. I don't think so.
It was more of a form of expression, maybe more of an art.
Well, was the culture?
Yeah, art was
I
big.
think the issue is, this is something that fascinates me. Was the culture, say, in the 19th century? Right now, the culture in the Western world is capitalism. That is the culture in the United States. I don't know about the UK. You live in a capitalist country?
Yeah.
Yeah,
You do?
consumerist, yeah.
With a bit of socialism thrown in, bit of mild socialism.
Well, the thing is, let me put this to you guys. This is an issue that I think is very significant to me. Isn't socialism as an idea a fairly good idea? It equalizes wealth. It provides jobs for people. It provides health care. Don't you think I'm not saying it works out well, but as an idea, it's a pretty good idea.
It is, yeah. It doesn't
On
work.
paper.
Yeah.
On paper, don't you think it's a pretty good idea?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In theory.
On paper. On paper, yeah.
But you don't think on a practical level that it's very good.
No. It doesn't fit human nature.
But I still say I started reading the writings. The other day I've been spending some time reading the writings of Karl Marx.
Mhm.
He was a very smart guy, really. Actually, he
I love
was.
his comedy.
What?
I love his comedy.
Right. Yeah, but I think that, communism arose as a option because it was felt, and a lot of people followed Marx, a lot.
Mm.
In the 19th century, quite a few people. He had
Came
quite
to
a
us.
following, didn't he?
Yeah, I think he came to our town, didn't he? Is that or is that a
Manchester.
Mandela effect? Preston is where we live.
He came to your place?
He did, apparently, yeah.
Well, I'm just saying that outside of socialism and communism, to me, it addressed a problem in capitalism, because capitalism is based on greed.
Mhm.
Correct?
Yeah.
Yes. Wealth
you think that's
accumulation.
good? You think that's good?
I think it's
a
inevitable.
fact.
Yeah.
That was a joke, by the way. I'm sorry I didn't catch it about Preston. But no, I just think that these
I
people, the
thought you were Michael
socialists,
Douglas.
I just think socialists and communists, I think they came up with a fairly good idea.
Right?
Yeah.
On paper.
Just on paper, you don't think a communist, for example, you don't think that communism is a very good system?
I don't know.
No, I don't think
No,
you.
it's disproven,
yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I
But
don't know
is
what North Korea is
capitalism
like.
a system which creates class demarcations, which is based on greed and aggressive acquisition of money, and where everything is based on money? Do you think that's good?
That's a terrible idea on paper. It seems to work
It works
in Western
better.
society.
You think it works?
The point is, you have to have limitations, don't you? Yeah, it has to be monitored. This is why we have a left and a right wing of politics.
Right.
Because if anything goes too far one way or the other,
That's right. That's a
It-
very good point,
it tends to lead to
You
bad.
need both. I think you're right, Phil. You need both.
Yeah,
Left and right.
each wing has to keep the other side in check.
Like an aeroplane.
Which is what happened in the United States. There was a right reaction it was felt that the left had gotten a little too out of hand. That's why Trump was elected. You know, whether you like him or not, and I'm not asking you to like him. Politics is personal. It's feelings, largely feelings.
Yeah.
I don't think it's rational exactly. You know,
No.
it usually comes from your family. Don't you think it comes from your family?
Yeah. Quite a lot.
Environment or something.
Yeah.
Lived experience.
The class system plays into politics in our country as well.
Right.
Probably to a larger degree than the US.
Is the Labor Party, let me get this straight, because I know I'm asking a lot of questions, but I'm interested because you're from another society and you can inform me.
Yeah.
Is the Labor Party in UK a truly socialist party?
No. It was for a little bit, quite recently. Have you heard of Jeremy Corbyn?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so he was the leader recently, and he tried to make it a little bit more, well, quite a socialist party. But prior to that, it was rebranded by Tony Blair as New Labour in like the mid late 90s, and it got a little bit more towards the centre, really. Yeah.
Tony Blair was not a socialist?
Well, he spent more on, like the health system, education, things like that. But I wouldn't call him a socialist, probably. Had socialist leanings, maybe, I guess, at most.
Do you believe that I read a book about an Anglican bishop, and this man, I don't remember the name of the person, I don't remember his name at this point. He was president, he was a leading sort of, one of the leaders in his time in the early 20th century. He espoused the position, as did many people at that time, for the idea that, what's the word that he espoused? The idea of creating, getting rid of people that were defective or disabled or retarded. Eugenics.
Eugenics.
That was the term.
Eugenics, yeah, geez.
It was very popular
Wow.
among many circles.
In the early 30s. In the early 30s.
Yeah. Of course, it got discredited because of Hitler's actions. But for a time, it had a lot of followers.
I take it you're not a proponent of eugenics, Andrew?
No, I'm not.
What's
I don't
your-
believe in getting rid of people that I see as inessential or stupid or disabled or retarded. No, I'm not. I think it's terrible.
Yeah, you see the
It's
value,
horrible.
the value in the individual over anything.
Yeah, but I mean, after all, I mean, it's a terrible thing to espouse that you want to get rid of people that you think are stupid or retarded or disabled or whatever reasons. And I think, I'm not sure, but I think Hitler pushed the envelope in this respect.
Right. Yeah, Hitler. There was a lot going on with Hitler, weren't there?
Well, he was a racist. I read a little bit about Hitler. He was a racist.
Yeah.
He was.
Yeah.
And that was the whole issue. And I think he was eugenics person. Don't you think he was, essentially?
It's part of the idea, what the whole behind it, wasn't it? A lot of people who got sent to concentration camps were disabled people as well. Yeah.
Yeah, all kinds of people. People that he felt he wanted to purify the society and having only good. The idea of eugenics, I think, I don't agree with it. I think it's terrible.
No. He played a lot off sort of German folk tales, sort of folk mythology, and used that to try and
like the Aryan race kind of thing.
Around, yeah, and use that as his justification, and then you had things like the Hitler Youth, you know.
Yes, he did. Well, he wanted to create the idea, and this was eugenics, a eugenics position that he espoused. I don't know whether he did it exactly publicly as a eugenics person, but the net result was he wanted to purify, the idea of eugenics was having good stock in the society. That's the idea of eugenics, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And getting rid of poor people, not having them on the increase. That was one of the groups they wanted to get rid of, wasn't it?
Yeah. Do you think it's still going on today?
I think there are, thank God, it's lost a lot of ground. As I say, thank God, because it's a terrible idea to kind of want to get rid of people that you think are not a benefit to society. I think it's awful, to tell you the truth. And it's my personal opinion. You know.
I agree. I think we all agree, don't we?
We do.
Yes.
But do I think it's going on today? It's hard to say. Maybe it's very hard to say. I'm sure there are people who go along with this today. I'm sure there are.
What do you think about designer babies and gene editing then, in terms of?
I know about it. Why don't you tell me about it?
What
is it?
Well, I guess there's a push to look at science to prevent the birth, perhaps, of a child who would be severely life limited, with a kind of view to avoiding that pain and suffering. But isn't that, by its very nature?
It is eugenics, yes.
Yeah.
And also, some people say, and I don't want to get into a religious discussion on this issue, but many pro-life people who are against abortion, they do, and it may be so, that abortion has its roots in eugenics. Many abortions are performed on kids with Down syndrome or retarded. The issue that you and I have to face on those positions is, are we going to devalue people on that basis and to that extent? I'm not prepared to do it. I'm not prepared to say because a person's retarded or something that they're worthless. No. I don't agree. I ran across a lot of mentally disabled people. They're wonderful people. They're very nice people. I don't want to see a situation in a society which endorses, frankly, getting rid of them.
No, I agree with you on that, Andrew.
We have a system over here where we have a screening during pregnancy, don't we? Where you screen is it the 12-week scan or I think it's the 20-week scan maybe.
What is the screening? Tell me about it.
You know where they do it's not an oscilloscope. What is it?
They take a sample of amniotic fluid and screen for genetic abnormalities.
Well, they don't do that straight away, do they? So what happens is the fetus is measured, and if it's sort of within or beyond a certain threshold, they measure the spine, I think, and if it's, I don't know, shorter or longer, whatever it is, then you're offered an amniotic fluid test, and then you get results saying, you've got 1 in 1,000 chance of your baby being born with Williams syndrome, which is like Down syndrome or something like that.
Right.
Amniocentesis.
That's it. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. You raised a very, very compelling question. Should a society allow an individual to get rid of I guess the word is get rid of. I don't know. I can't think of any other term. The only thing I can think of, get rid of another human being because they're retarded or disabled or brain injured. Do you think a society should allow that to happen to another human being and devalue that person to that extent? It's a matter of devaluation. That's the issue I have with it. Devaluing another human being.
If you remove that ability, though, aren't you removing the what is inherently an individual choice of someone to make that decision? If you say, well, now there's you can't do that. That's not an option. There's an argument to say, well, if no one ever had the choice to begin with, then that wouldn't matter, and it would never be a thing. But to be able to even attempt to do that now in a modern society where that choice has been around for decades, I don't think that's even possible. It's an interesting thought experiment that would just go round and round in circles ad nauseum. I think it's impossible one to kind of make a judgment on. Certainly from my standpoint, I don't feel I could make a judgment either way. And I know we've discussed this issue in the past on some of the earlier rawer podcasts that we did, and it's a doozy.
Yeah.
Well, but still, I mean, isn't it really? Let's get down to the thinking here in getting rid of a Down syndrome or disabled child or retarded child. Mentally challenged is the word people use today. Isn't this really a product of eugenics and its thinking?
It seems to share an ancestry, a heritage. The idea does. It would seem it's in the same sort of ballpark of kind of ensuring a populace of
Yeah.
you know,
The
a certain standing.
The implication is that this child is going to be a burden, and therefore we're going to give you the option to terminate.
Then don't get pregnant.
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't want burdens, then don't get pregnant and cause burdens.
Well, then the obvious question there, isn't it, is sexual assault, I suppose.
Someone who's raped.
Mm.
But what about people? Look, it's perfectly legal to have sex as much as you want, I suppose, with anyone you want. Really, there's no laws about it, you know. But isn't that when people do that, these are the kind of consequences that can happen?
Yeah,
they are bringing about a situation because of their, frankly, their conduct and behavior. They may have had a great time. I don't know whoever they did this with, you know.
This loops nicely back into education, and you have to have that, you know, forewarned is forearmed in all this, in every adventure. So I've got to write that down.
But then, if
tell
you're
my
going to do
kids when
that,
they're old
if you're
enough
going
to
to do that, then there's going to be these consequences.
Do you know, Andrew, one of the things that worries me, you see, because it's such a moral question and it's a difficult one, and your argument makes sense. One of the problems I have is that if you say they did wave a magic wand and make it illegal, would you not just see it going underground and back alley abortions and
yeah, that's true. You're right. It would no. You can't force the issue on this particular idea. No, I don't think so. You can't force a woman to have a baby. No.
I mean, if you went, we're talking about now we have the technology to screen early and intervene early if we so choose. If you went back into history, you would find that when these babies were born, they would be exposed and left to die.
That's true. I would assume, of course, in past times, women were sort of put in the position of being bringing babies into the world, and that was all they were sort of geared to.
Yeah.
And so, yes, they probably got rid of a lot of them. Or a lot of them died.
Yeah, and a lot of mothers will have died as well.
Yes, they did.
You know, we have some things to thank for this, you know, increased medical technology we have, but it does. The eugenics thing raises a lot of interesting moral questions. And what about, you know, designer babies, like you said, Ben's another.
Well, I have a problem I have a problem. I realize that abortion is something that is going to happen and it's inevitable, and but I have a problem with the idea. I don't like the idea of devaluing someone because of their race, because of their looks, because of how they dress. For whatever reason, I don't like devaluing people. or not being smart enough. Look, isn't that really what they're saying? When the person they're talking about a mentally challenged person, the person is not, they don't want to have not too bright people around.
And then,
I don't think that's good.
I mean, you could look at that as a bit of a slippery slope as well. You know, if the technology gets further advanced, could you be able to screen for kids that are going to have an IQ lower than 60, say? And then the question will be asked, do you want to, you know, and then
Is that what do you want a society, Phil, where we only have smart people?
I
mean, is that what's really, that's really what they're talking about, isn't it? When they have an emotion for a kid who's mentally challenged or something, they're saying, I only want smart people.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty tragic, really, isn't it?
It is tragic.
Yeah.
I mean, as a side, I don't like judging a person in that respect.
I mean, I'm lucky. I've not been in. I can't. I've not had that lived experience. I've not been in the position where I've had that news from a pregnancy screening and had to make that decision. So I don't think we can judge. I think it's difficult to judge people who have had to go through that decision.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is that that decision is based on, I don't want stupid people to be bothered with.
Yeah.
That's really what they're saying, isn't it?
I don't think so. I think
No,
I think there's more nuance than that, isn't there? There's more going on in people's lives than just thinking, I don't want a stupid baby. There's a lot of things. Yeah, it could be, you know, with pre-existing sort of issues they've got themselves, or yeah, the worry of looking after a baby that alone. Lots of different things, I suppose.
There'll be maybe financial implications and time implications, maybe.
right. Yeah, you're right about that. But our society, Western societies at this point, we put a premium on people. Certainly, we put a premium on people who are academic. I think so. And we do not put much value on people that are not too bright. I don't think so.
Yeah.
Those people are looked down on, basically, correct?
Yeah, there's a certain amount of sort of societal prestige that goes with certain, maybe certain roles and jobs and job titles.
Well, let me ask you guys this. Do you think, I have a problem with this idea, and it really bothers me. In society in the United States, it may be true in the UK, we value men or women who do white-collar work, who dress nice, who are executives, maybe do executive kind of work, or professional work, lawyers, whatever. And we do not put much value. We lower the value of people, say, who do manual labor or physical work. I have a problem with that, because I don't think that because a person does physical work, they are therefore less of a person than someone who's an executive. I don't think so.
I think that's certainly been the case. One thing I would say is that I think the COVID response has maybe highlighted how much we depend on some of the more blue collar work, what you call blue. It's not the term
blue collar, right?
Here, really. How would you describe it over here, Ben or Matt? Blue collar work.
Well, do you believe that
Tradesmen.
in the West, blue collar work is not respected, as opposed to a doctor or a lawyer or a
they're not
engineer?
they're not respected until you need one.
That's true. But
When
do you
you-
believe
when
that the societies in the West do not respect that group of people?
I think even the respect for the academics, scientists, is eroding now.
Think so?
More recently.
And maybe so.
Interesting.
Yeah, we are. We're having a bit of a backlash, aren't we, on experts?
Michael Gove famously said, was sick
So
of
you
listening
think
to
that
experts.
there is less respect for the academic group?
Not overall, but there's a decay in it.
Do you have an explanation for that?
You keep getting stuff wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. Misinterpretation, I would say. It's the, not on the scientists' part, on the
Well,
peons.
I think there was a big thing, wasn't there, recently with, you heard of Brexit? So, we're leaving the European Union in the UK. Yeah. So basically the experts called it wrong, I think. They thought we would just remain in the EU and we left. So I think that was quite a bit of a catalyst for people kind of saying, oh, we don't need experts, and an erosion of faith in that they knew what they were talking about effectively.
I read about Brexit, what happened then in the newspapers in the United States. And they said, they made a point of this, that the people who voted to get out of Brexit were stupid, blue-collar, labor class people. I remember them saying that.
Yeah, that's pretty much correct.
It's true, yeah.
But I don't think that because a person, as I said, does blue collar work and therefore limited intellectually. I don't think so.
No, yeah, it was true. It was true for everything except the stupid things. So yeah, it was quite a lot of Labour. Well, outside of London, quite a lot of Labour towns voted for Brexit, didn't they? Or
in the UK, are those people seen as backward? Limited?
It depends.
Just
on
read different newspapers.
Yeah.
It's just all about what newspaper you read.
I dislike that kind of thinking. I'll tell you guys, I dislike that kind of thinking about blue collar work. I don't think blue collar people are less intellectually capable than white collar people. I'm not convinced of that.
Nope.
No, I don't think so.
It's going back to
they do a different kind of work, but it doesn't mean their different kind of work makes them less intellectually capable. It's simply something. It's a different kind of activity.
Horses for courses.
It's going back to how you start. At the beginning of the conversation, we were talking about college and university, and it's you're drawing the same parallel there between college-educated kids and not, and white-collar and blue-collar workers.
Yeah.
It's
well, I do have this sense, I don't want to be repetitious, that in Western society, I don't know whether it's true in other systems like communist China or something, or Putin's Russia. I don't know, but it could be that in those societies like communist China and Putin's Russia, there are many more blue-collar people, many more. They are not as industrially advanced as the West. So it's a fair chance there'd be more blue-collar people in Russia and China than in England and the United States.
I would say so, because I think our economy particularly is very much more based around services.
Right.
We don't, our similar to what's happened in the US, our manufacturing base has declined over the last 30 years.
Yeah, that's what happened in the United States.
Yeah, it's all gone, well, in your case, a lot went to Mexico. And, a lot goes to China and the Far East. So there's less of a demand for blue-collar workers, I assume, which is why we've gone into more things like financial services and hospitality, tourism.
Let me ask you this. I have another problem with capitalism in this respect. You raise a very good point, Phil, of outsourcing jobs for cheap labor. The reason capitalism is based on profits. If I can make a profit, I do it. And it's based on paying people the least you can pay them, if you allow this to occur without controls, getting people the least you can pay them and getting the most out of them. That's classic capitalism. But isn't really outsourcing jobs to Mexico or China or Thailand, isn't that really the same thing? The capitalists have achieved a method of paying the least and having a slave labor system, not in their own countries, but they have worked it. They can do it other places. Correct?
Yeah, you have child labor in Congo, mining lithium. And
that's right. So the capitalists have come up with getting around child labor in this country, in your country, in my country.
Outsourcing.
You're getting around it. Aren't they really?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
So I told you, I have a problem with that kind of thinking of just making everything based on profits and paying as little as possible and getting as much out of people as possible. That is classic capitalism. That is capitalism at the turn of the century. That is capitalism where we can push as much out of a human being as we can get him, pay him the least, and get more money for ourselves. That is, isn't that classic capitalism?
Yeah. What's the alternative for the West, Andy?
I don't think they should. Do you think it is right? People need in their own countries, such as the UK or the I don't know. Do they outsource in the UK?
Yeah.
Outsource jobs. They do.
Yeah.
See, the issue. One of the issues. First of all, I don't like this idea of slave labor particularly. It doesn't appeal to me particularly. That they're getting around the controls that were placed in the 20th century around these kind of activities. They're skirting around it by doing this. But my issue with that outsourcing is that the workers in the UK and United States, they don't want to pay them union wages. Correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, things that were fought for years, basically.
They don't want to pay people the wages that they'd have to pay them in our countries. So they do this. But in fact, people need jobs in the UK and the United States. These people, not everybody's gone to an elite school and their parents have a lot of money. Some may fit in that category, but a lot don't. And the fact of the matter is, should these people be excluded from the job market by this method? They can't get a job. It's all being outsourced.
Yeah.
No?
I mean, that's point of Trump's point, wasn't it? Was to be a bit more protectionist in his outlook and try and encourage manufacturing to regrow in the States and bring some of it home.
Yes, it was. But the issue for me here is, and I don't want to get into a political discussion because people have different views in this respect, but I have an issue with, first of all, the result is that unions are eliminated. In the United States, unions have been eliminated. And therefore, the bottom line is that a large number of people, because of this system that has developed, can't get a job. Or they may get a job that barely pays only a bit. They may have to have 2 per diem jobs or something. So I have an issue with the capitalist system in this respect.
Yeah, you need some sort of degree of state oversight, don't you, to try and monitor these things. And
do you think that these companies should be allowed to do that, to push jobs out of their own societies and have a slave labor system?
It's a tricky one to answer.
It's a tricky one because the alternative would seem to be to restrict the market in some way, and that may.
But they are in outsourcing. They are hitting at the economic basis of their own country.
Yeah. I think part of the problem, Andrew, is that we're a lot more consumerist maybe than we were pre-World War II, and I think we're used to having these cheap goods.
Yeah,
we have a bit of a throwaway society, and
we do. So you don't think the government should control outsourcing?
I don't see how it would work practically. How would it work?
You pass laws. You got to say you got to employ where you got to stay in this country and pay people a living wage, which is what they should do.
Right. So we have a minimum wage. We have a minimum wage in this country, and
right.
There's currently a campaign to introduce a living wage.
You have a minimum wage in the UK?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A statutory one. Yeah.
do you still have you? I'm just curious because unions have been wrecked in the United States. I'm pro-union. I'll tell you, Phil. I'm pro-union because I think that people need there has to be a balance of power in the employment situation. So I'm pro-union. But do you still have unions in the UK?
There are unions, but the powers were very much reduced by Margaret Thatcher in the 80s. So like picketing and things like that. So something stupid. It's just one thing that sticks in my mind is for a picket line, you can have a maximum of 3 people on an entrance to a building, and that's it. Stuff like that, basically.
So did Margaret Thatcher? Did she try to get rid of unions?
I don't think it would have been possible for her to get rid of them, but she basically reduced the amount of power and sway that he had. Simply, it was. Have you heard of the coal miners' strike in the UK? So a lot to do with that. A lot to do with like the general strike, I think, as well, and the 3-day week and all that kind of stuff that happened in the 70s. So they were seen as meddlesome and troublesome. So not
was she a come from a wealthy background?
No, her mum and dad were greengrocers, I think. So she wasn't, and I think she was educated. She went through have you heard of the grammar school system?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so she went to a grammar school, and to university from there. I think.
If you were to compare Tony Blair and Margaret Thatcher,
yeah,
what would you see positive and good about those two people, or not so good? If you were to line them up,
I suppose I don't know. I don't.
Tony had a nicer smile, didn't he?
I suppose from my view, it depends on how you sort of see it now. He spent more on education, Tony Blair. Had a more what you might call a more modern approach to education than Margaret Thatcher would. Spent more on healthcare, but again, I don't really know, other than kind of the stuff on the negative things I've read about Margaret Thatcher. I don't know what positive things. She was more for the European Union, was she, or was she? I can't remember now. But I seem to remember she was quite into Reaganomics, trickle down economics, the idea of getting big businesses in, wealth people in, and the money's in the system, so it kind of trickles down.
What was Reaganomics? I don't remember that.
I think it's like trickle down economics.
That's nonsense.
Yeah.
I believe it's a lie. I believe it's a lie.
Well,
there's no trickle down. They're just keeping the money they make.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. So it's that wealth accumulation, isn't it, basically? The greed.
I prefer to call it golden story.
I remember that supply side economics, and it was such a big lie that it really bothered me, because it was, I know, Phil, very well that wealthy people and big business makes money and keeps it. It doesn't trickle down to anybody else.
Exactly.
I don't think so.
That's the issue, isn't it? That's why everyone's talking about now. Why is the middle class is being squeezed, isn't it? Essentially, there's less people
in the United States. There's no real middle class anymore.
Right. Okay.
I don't think so. It's our system is it's still capitalist, but I have to say that from my limited knowledge of it, it's not working too well. For example, as I mentioned to you, Phil, in some sense, there are no real jobs. They're part-time jobs. As you say, the jobs have been outsourced. So the result is that people can only get a per diem or part-time job. Unions have been eliminated. So the people who could enter the middle class with raised wages through unions can't do it anymore.
And this is a real problem when social mobility breaks down. It makes people despair. It makes people hopeless that they can't.
It's very difficult. I think, despite what the government says in the United States, I don't know what they say in UK. I don't know what exactly they say about this kind of thing. I mean, is it difficult? Let me ask you this: in the UK, I think it's difficult to get employment in the United States, but is it also a difficult system in the UK? In the way I described?
Sorry, what do you mean?
Well, I'm saying that when you don't have unions and when you outsource jobs, the result is that, I hate to say it, but people can't get a quality living wage. They will get a part-time job.
Yeah.
They will get some kind of little job in addition, and there's no pensions, there's no benefits.
Yeah. Well,
Zero
I mean,
hours,
in the UK and Europe, well, if you're part of the European Union, I should say, there's a statutory right to sort of have a certain amount of holiday. So I think it's 4 weeks, if I'm correct.
Really?
I think, yeah. So that's the minimum. Obviously, if you're employed, that is. But in terms of, at the moment, there's quite a lot of debate around something called 0-hour contracts in this country. So a lot of big, startup companies, a lot of large retail companies, Amazon, employ people on what we call a 0-hour contract, in that they're not guaranteed any hours, basically. So that 1 week.
That's what we have. It's our system here,
right?
Basically.
Okay. But there's an argument for it and an argument against. So some people like it. Like it comes to the top of my head, like students, for example, someone who's at university. They might want to just work here and there, whereas someone who's struggling to find alternative employment, and is stuck 1 week working 15 hours, another week working 40, and they need to be working 40 consistently, obviously wouldn't like that as much. But there's pros and cons to it.
One of the problems in the employment sector in the United States is, in the United States, I don't know if it's true, I don't think it's quite as true in the UK. People are absolutely constantly fired and losing their jobs. I think we should have a system in which there's some protection for people.
Agree.
In that respect.
Yeah. I think, some sort of employment rights. Employment rights
so.
on the whole are a good thing. I think people should have some level of security in their job. I think your system's a bit more, I would say, aggressive than ours. We probably have more protection for workers, and that's the way to go, I think.
Certainly, if you've been working with a company for over 2 years, I think is the cutoff. You have additional rights in terms of.
So you can't be fired that easily in the UK.
In theory, yeah, but I'm sure in lots of small companies, people are just fired.
Yeah,
that goes on as well. But in larger companies that have processes, I'm sure it still happens, but there are supposed to be sort of systems there that stop it. Yeah. And
I think it's been about an hour, hasn't it?
I was just going to say, it's an hour and a quarter nearly.
Oh, really? I thought it was a great conversation.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's nice to talk with you. Yeah,
it was good.
we hit some important stuff. It was interesting. I think I learned something.
Well, as you say, I'm a little bit of the left. I'm a little bit of the right. Yeah, as you say, we need both.
Yeah,
we'll have to talk about the parables next time.
Okay, great. All right, next time you want to schedule, we'll talk about the parables.
Sure. Yeah, that'd be cool.
Okay.
Oh yeah,
Right.
great. Thanks. Thanks
That
for
was good.
Thanks for
Thanks
coming,
a lot.
Andy. All right,
Bye.
take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
I'll chat with Andy Schatkin. We'll be back in a flash. Right, we're back.
The dwarf, the cripple, and the mother of madness.
That was our chat.
Hi.
That was our chat with Andrew Schatkin.
Yeah.
Interesting chat.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll have to get him back to talk about, the reason why we got him on.
Yeah. It was good. He was interested in what we had to say, which caught me off guard a little bit.
Yes.
The Inquisitors become the Inquisitide. Yeah, it's good.
Touche, Andrew.
Don't forget to check out his website, Schatkin.com, link in the description, as usual. And Schatkin show. He has his own radio show.
Oh,
Not a podcast.
outrageous.
Podcast as well, I think.
All right.
Yeah. So make sure you check that out. Should we do some housekeeping?
Housekeeping.
Housekeeping. Housekeeping.
Housekeeping.
Right. First order of housekeeping is a serious business. Because, Matt, you called me out this week because of my horrible language I used last week. Rightly so. So I was talking about the, towards the end of the episode, about the Atlantic slave trade. And I used when I listened back to it, and what I would describe as insensitive and belittling language. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah.
So I'd like to apologise for that. I try not to. I'm not trying to go out of my way to offend people.
What was it you said?
Nice try. The truth is, I'm angry and frustrated about the current discourse on some of these subjects, and it belittling the Atlantic slave trade's terrible, because I'm well aware of the human cost of slavery. Not the thing is, I think a lot of people look at the Atlantic slave trade in isolation, and because I'm like an amateur student of history, I look at it as like a continuum, and it's always existed. It's a constant of the human story, slavery. Go right back to Hammurabi, back in the Bronze Age. We talk about slaves. You know, the classical period, Roman Greece, slavery was a big thing. You know, right through to get the Vikings. You know, the Vikings preyed on the Slavs in the east and the Britons in the west, and traded in slaves, and it's just gone on and on and on, and it's still going on today. And I just try and look at trying to look in things in perspective, I guess, an overall perspective, and you know, it's a tough one. So I'm sorry about that.
It's okay, isn't it? We all make mistakes.
Yeah.
That's all. It's just a very sensitive subject, isn't it?
It is, and there was a great. I told you the other day, there was a great podcast that came out this week. I wrote it down. Trigonometry, which is one I listen to fairly regularly, but the guest was Professor Nigel Biggar. He's from Oxford, professor at Oxford, in moral and pastoral theology. And the title of the podcast was "Should We Be Ashamed of Our History?" And it was really interesting. I mean, the first 30 minutes was him talking about his personal situation and how they've tried to cancel him for trying to do a research project on the ethics of the British Empire, and he sort of got shut down, and people started.
Really?
Yeah, it's quite interesting.
But that's even before he come to his conclusion.
Yeah. A group of students got together and lobbied to have it stopped. So that was like the first half, and then the second half of the interview, he sort of addresses the question of the ethics of the empire. And see, I think a lot of the modern discourse is centered around it was evil. And like he says, there were good things and bad things. And show me a state that's existed for any length of time that hasn't done heinous things.
Yeah, they would argue it's a necessary evil.
There isn't any. He raised a really interesting point, and came to a really interesting conclusion about why it's the British Empire that gets singled out. So like the interviewer says, is it a sort of a victim of your own success sort of thing? You know, people don't make a fuss about the Swedish Empire, for example, because they were a smaller player, and the Swedes don't sort of take this negative view of their own empire. Part of the research project he was doing, he asked one of his like research fellows, whatever, find me a contemporary Islamic scholar criticizing the Arab slave trade. And the research fellow came back and said, yeah, there aren't any. It seems quite unique to the British Empire. And his rationale was really interesting. He was of the view that how we live today, liberal, democratic, capitalist society, that sort of came from the post-war period. The foundation of that was the British Empire, and the institutions that we have today were modelled on that. And you get things like the League of Nations, and that turns into the United Nations, and all these other institutions, and that our whole culture is sort of like there's like a foundation stone of the British Empire. And he's of the conclusion that part of this thing is to see the collapse of Western civilization by undermining the British Empire. Who would do that?
To what end? Yeah, that's what I mean. What's the
Chinese Communist Party?
Yeah, I've
Russia.
heard this argument.
Ah,
yeah,
right,
China
okay.
and Russia trying to bring down the Western way of thinking, and
Maybe Iran post 1979. Marxists.
Also, like, you think there's a deliberate seeding of this kind of sentiment, basically?
That's part of what he was saying. It's really interesting. I'd recommend, if anyone's interested in the subject. I mean, it'll be difficult listening for some people, because he talks about just like the Atlantic slave trade and the nature of it that a lot of people aren't aware of. So it's, it might be uncomfortable listening, but I'd highly recommend it.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah.
I think I'd listen to that.
Yeah, definitely. It's only an hour.
Good.
Okay.
podcast.
Can we do fun housekeeping now?
Yeah,
Unless you've
that
got anything
was
to add.
downer, man.
No.
Right. Okay. Well, that's that out of the way.
Well covered, Phil.
iTunes reviews.
We need him.
Yeah, we haven't got any more. What are you doing?
What are you doing?
What are you doing with your life?
Yeah, we've got literally 2 more people have messaged us this week who could have left iTunes reviews. And have they?
No.
Have they?
No.
No, they haven't.
So leave us iTunes reviews. Subscribe to the YouTube channel is important, because there might be a live stream coming up soon.
Oh,
Ooh,
Might be.
special.
Might be, yeah. And that might be on YouTube. So subscribe to the YouTube channel. Send us articles, videos, interesting clips, things that we might want to discuss. I think we have some messages.
had some messages, haven't we? Saying how awesome we are.
I think we had a couple of nice messages that deserve singling out.
Are we going to?
Don't read the bad ones out.
Are we going to say the names, full names, or should I just say the first names?
Yeah, the producers, read them out.
All right. Okay. So we had a message from Tim Deaks. He's just finished the previous episode with Gary Arndt. And he said, just finished the episode. Loved Gary. What a fascinating man. Look forward to following more episodes. Hi, 10.
Excellent.
Wow.
In an emoji. Yeah. And then we've just, David Stilley.
Yeah.
He's on vacation somewhere and can't access episode 145. I don't know what you're doing, David, because I can get it on Podbean and all the other apps that are out there.
Thanks for bringing that to our attention, though.
Yes.
If you do have any problems, send us a message, Instagram or email, amishinquisition@gmail.com.
And if you're thinking about adding emojis, the process of doing so is about as laborious as doing an iTunes review.
Yes.
So,
I've got
well, go on.
Was that it, Matt?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, he's just said, thanks for being awesome.
Oh,
Thanks,
nice
David.
to get recognition we deserve.
I know, yeah.
Thanks, David. I was on Instagram recently,
Mhm.
and I was looking at a post. I follow Those Conspiracy Guys, who are an Irish podcast.
Yes, you've mentioned those previously, yeah.
And I was on one of their posts, and I often look at who else has liked the post, and I came across a chap called Jaimie Carter.
Oh.
And he had an interview.
Yes.
Part of his thing said GB, I think it was GB Olympic athlete or something.
Right, okay.
Oh, that's interesting. So I sent him a follow request,
Mm.
and he messaged us.
Oh, right, okay.
Down, saying, oh, right, you're a podcaster, right, okay. Anyway, he started listening
Right.
Excellent.
from episode 1.
Not
Oh, no.
excellent.
Don't go there, mate. Oh no!
The dark
some of-
ages.
Some of those like some of those 5 hours long.
He said, where should I start? I said, well, we did a really interesting one with Rudolph. The chap in question, Jaimie, is also on the square, on the level.
Oh.
Albert Square.
He's an entered apprentice in the Freemasonic.
I can't do the sign like that.
You got to do this, haven't you?
Roll your trouser leg up.
Yeah.
Yeah, bay a nipple or something.
Live long and prosper.
I said, yeah, we had a 30-year Freemason on and didn't talk to him about Freemasonry. So listen to that one. But no, it's gone back to the beginning.
That's the first rule of Freemasonry Club, isn't it?
Yeah. Don't talk about the lodge.
Ah, dear. So I thought that was interesting. I thought you'd get a laugh out of that.
Yeah. I think probably we changed format around sort of mid-May, start of June, and we've seen a real uptick in downloads and listens since we did this hour with a guest, and then just us sticking around for a bit at the end.
It's called the reverse Grimerica.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's got to have a name. Someone to write a thesis about that in future years, after we've all been on Bake Off 3 times each.
Anything to add for producers?
No.
What's the number way you become a producer, fuckwits?
Oh, sorry, that bit. You need to give us money. Toss us a coin, you bitches.
Toss a coin to your witcher, O Valley of Plenty.
Thank you. Wonderful donations are acceptable. Yeah. So I'll thank the producers for this week. Producers for episode 148. Oh, Phil Gornall, Jonathan Mitchell, Jaimie Carter, Sweet Tea for the Soul, Tamborista 2020, Tim Deaks, David Stilley, Maggie Vandenberg, Sophia Sleigh, and Dick Pound.
Dick Pound.
Dick Pound, the legend that is Dick Pound. So thank you. This goes out to you.
They are.
Yeah.
So, and their love.
The dwarf, the cripple, and the mother of madness.
You're wrong, and you're a grotesquely ugly freak.
I'm a blind. I think I'm on terms with the fact that I am gay.
Like a judgment day and terminating more like.
Personally, I'd like to see some more from Dick Pound.
I've got it. Oh dear. Shall we move on?
Yeah.
Okay, you know what it's time for?
COVID-19 news.
Boring.
Oh, some big news. There's been an absolute blockbuster of a story from the New York Times this week about the PCR test. Have you heard about this?
No.
Polymerase chain reaction.
What's this test? Oh, sorry.
The COVID-19 test, that we take. See if you've got.
Is that what I've had with the swab?
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I've got a clip. I had to break this down into 4 clips. And this
I'll sit back.
Yeah.
This is from One American News, and it's pretty interesting.
According to a bombshell new report, up to 90% of positive COVID-19 tests in multiple states in our country should have been negative. And before Facebook censors this video, or Snopes or PolitiFact tries to slap a fact check label on it, this report came from the New York Times. That's right, the New York Times. According to the Times, and I quote, standard tests are diagnosing huge numbers of people who may be carrying relatively insignificant amounts of the virus and are not likely to be contagious, end quote. Let me repeat that. The vast majority of positive COVID-19 PCR tests in our country are clinically insignificant because the people who popped positive are not likely to be contagious. Why?
Why? Shall we find out?
The nature of the polymerase chain reaction.
It's to do with the amplification process.
The amplification.
How they multiply.
Let's go on to clip 2.
The answer is amplification cycles. Let me explain because it's actually quite simple. A PCR test, which is the most common type of COVID-19 test, the kind you're familiar with, identifies the virus's genetic material in a swab sample and then amplifies it over and over again until a machine can detect the DNA of the virus. If the machine detects the virus's DNA, then the test pops positive. But the number of times the genetic material on the swab sample is amplified is hugely important because it correlates to viral load. We're all familiar with the idea that if you get COVID-19 and you're asymptomatic, you likely have a very small viral load in your system. Or conversely, if you get COVID-19 severely, you might have a higher viral load. Well, if you amplify the genetic material of the swab sample enough times, you will detect the virus DNA even if the viral load in the person's body is clinically insignificant. Meaning, even if that person only has traces of the virus in their body, even if they're not symptomatic themselves, even if they're very unlikely to be contagious and transmit the virus to other people. So the New York Times examined COVID-19 testing data from New York, Massachusetts, and Nevada, and found, and I quote, up to 90% of people testing positive carry barely any virus. And
Wow. Is there I was going to ask if there was like a standard amplification cycles to adhere to when you're doing the PCR test.
We're going to go on to that. I think most of the experts recommend no more than 30.
Oh, I think I know what the answer is going to be.
100.
This is because the PCR tests for COVID-19 in the United States are using anywhere between 35 and 40 amplification cycles to identify the genetic material of the virus. And many experts agree that anything higher than 30 amplification cycles will result in inactive, dead, or clinically insignificant amounts of the virus being detected, therefore causing the test to show up as positive. In fact, the New York Times claims that of the 45,000 positive COVID-19 tests that happened one day last week, and I quote here, if the rates of contagiousness in Massachusetts and New York were to apply nationwide, then perhaps only 4,500 of those people may actually need to isolate and submit to contact tracing, end quote.
So it explains why, well, it might explain, I should say, why the infection rate there is so much higher than everywhere else in the world or whatever.
They've done more testing than anyone. Fucking mile. Millions, 60 odd million tests and picking up dead virus. Why is this important, though? This is what we need to know.
So why is this important? Because public health policy, the lockdowns, the quarantines, the travel restrictions, businesses closed, gyms shut down, families prohibited from holding funerals, people not allowed to go to church, that is based on the number of COVID-19 cases in our country. Not the COVID-19 death count, not the infection fatality rate, not the hospitalization rate, not the number of ventilators in use, not the ICU bed capacity. No, no. The COVID-19 public policy in our country is based on COVID case numbers, which means positive COVID-19 tests. And according to the New York Times reports, up to 90% of positive COVID-19 tests should be negative.
She doesn't go on to say that potentially this would wipe 90% off your COVID death figures as well.
Yeah.
Because there doesn't have to be any clinical link between the disease and the death. It's just a case of you died with COVID.
I know that's the stupid thing, isn't it? Still,
on average, the average COVID death has 2.6 comorbidities. It might be that it's the comorbidities that are killing them in the vast majority of cases. It would explain why young kids aren't dying of it, because generally young kids don't die.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't know. Strange. I said weeks ago that the guy who invented the PCR test said this is not a it's not suitable to be used as a diagnostic test. But
Yes, I remember that. Yeah, I remember that being a thing. It was like a big debate, wasn't it, before they even started doing it, whether it was fit for purpose. But obviously, they just thought, "Oh, fuck it!" Like everything else has just been a fucking shambles, hasn't it? Even now, in the UK, the death, you know, to be classed as dying from COVID, you have had to have tested positive within 28 days, is it? Currently,
it's always been died with, not of.
I know, it's crazy.
No, it makes you wonder if they tested for something else. If they tested for flu to the same extent,
yeah,
a similar thing. It's hard to say.
Yeah.
Nothing's ever been carried out like this before, has it? This sort of massive thing for a specific illness. I don't think. I presume.
No.
You'd think by now they'd have kind of investigated further and figured out some improvements in these things. Which, I mean, is it just political nervousness about the whole thing, or is there? I don't know. I can't see any valid reason to carry on as we are without any further without doing any investigation into actually what's going on. It seems mental.
Isn't there a different test they can do now? Isn't there some sort of rapid test, or is it?
There's antibody tests. I don't know what the rapid test is. It might be serology based.
Something to do with saliva, isn't there? I've read.
I wonder if it's
depends what they do after it. I mean, how you take the sample. Obviously, spitting into a universal container is much better than having your brain scraped through your nostrils.
It's not that bad.
Isn't that?
No, I've had it
I
done.
nearly went the other day. I thought, I'll go just for the experience. But
I think it's fine.
Wasn't uncomfortable, that.
No, I don't know what people are moaning about. No, I mean, I quite often shove a cotton bud up my nose, so, you know.
How far up does it go?
So I was advised to shove it up 2 centimeters up my nostril.
Oh, you did it yourself?
Yeah.
2 centimeters?
Yeah.
I didn't even touch the sides.
I think there's a different one. I think the earlier test was the one where they had to get it in behind your cheek or something.
Yeah.
Well,
like
that's
sinuses.
Yeah, you shove it up the little flappy thing up your nose.
Right. Oh.
You shove it up there, and you twist it round. Shove it up the other one, twist it round, and then wipe the back of your throat with it.
Right.
Do you use the same ends to do both nostrils?
Yeah, it's just one swab. Yeah, that's
So
it.
you use your throat and your nostrils with the same swab?
Well, you do your back of your throat and then your nostrils. Yeah, the same swab.
Okay.
Some people have been. I wasn't told to do this, but my mum has had it done because she's going for a procedure, not an operation. She told me, and she was advised to swab her tonsils as well.
Ooh.
But when you say the back of the throat, it's like the thing behind the dangly bit.
Your uvula?
Yeah, behind there. I had to wipe that bit with a swab.
Gross. How's your gag reflex?
Pretty solid.
Some stuff disappeared.
Pardon?
Some stuff. Oh, it's gone. It's gone.
Well, yeah. So no, you know, if you're worried about having the test done, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
Should we move on from the testing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Should we go to our Antipodean friends? To the most
Oh no!
the most famous arrest in the world right now.
Oh, God.
A pregnant woman has been charged with incitement after police raided her Ballarat home. The 28-year-old live-streamed her arrest on Facebook after allegedly encouraging friends to attend a lockdown protest. Crime reporter Lana Murphy.
At 3 o'clock this afternoon, 4 detectives storm into a home.
Now, you're under arrest in relation to incitement.
Incitement? A young mother, still in her pyjamas, is cuffed.
What on earth? Excuse me, what on earth?
Slapped with a search warrant in front of her partner and young children.
Ultrasound in an hour?
Yeah, she's pregnant.
But Ballarat detectives were determined to question Zoe Bueller after the 28-year-old allegedly created this Freedom Day Facebook event, asking her friends to remember the 5th of September.
I wasn't breaking any laws by doing that.
You are breaking all. That's why I'm arresting you in relation to
How can you arrest her? That's
my 2 children.
The former cleaner turned candle maker has posted that COVID is a hoax, and police allege she was behind an anti-lockdown demonstration similar to those planned in major cities across the world this Saturday.
Can't you just say to her, take the post down? Like, come on.
I'm happy to delete the post. This is ridiculous.
Any device in this house we're taking.
This is ridiculous.
You're not taking my phone.
Well,
I'm taking any device, mate. That's my phone. It's nothing to do with her. It's my phone.
Yesterday, 2 men accused of planning the Melbourne event were arrested. The RSL slamming the tens of thousands of protesters expected to gather at the Shrine of Remembrance.
To protest at the shrine is really quite disrespectful for all those that have served, and we should be commemorating service and sacrifice, not protesting there.
Pete, Zoe Bueller has now been released from custody and is facing a $20,000 fine. Meanwhile, Victoria Police says anyone planning on attending a protest on Saturday can expect swift and firm action. It says that any gathering of this nature is a blatant breach of the Chief Health Officer's directions and puts Victorians' lives at risk. Now,
$20,000 fine.
Fucking hell.
Plus, I believe the maximum punishment's 20 years for incitement.
Oh, fuck off. It's just ridiculous, isn't it, that? I mean, you know, you can say the rights and wrongs of her allegedly encouraging people to go and protest, but fucking arresting her and fining her $20,000.
I love the bit where the boyfriend goes, "Hey, that's my phone, Dad. You're not taking my phone." Yeah, we are. Sorry, we're having it.
I know, yeah. I know. It's just... Yeah, there's been a lot of outcry even from sort of like lefty places, liberal kind of law firms and institutions saying that they're kind of starting to overstep. Is it Victoria again?
I presume so.
Yeah.
Hotspot.
Yeah, that's sort of starting to really push the boundaries of what's kind of acceptable in a democracy. Really.
Yeah. Tyrannical government's only a few steps away, you know. What does it old man says? Constant vigilance.
Yeah.
Constant vigilance.
Well, you're right. It's a very hard one and easily taken away. And that's why they have the Second Amendment. One of the reasons, anyway. But you know, that's another story.
Yeah.
So I thought that was, pretty. Well, I don't know. I can't see it happening here. We've had protests. Man, you've had Piers Corbyn was arrested, wasn't he, yesterday?
He was, yeah.
The ex-Archbishop was at that Extinction Rebellion thing as well in London.
Yeah, I was wondering if that was who Andrew was talking about.
That's not COVID. That's XR.
Yeah, sorry. I thought we were talking about just protests in general because the Extinction Rebellion have been protesting, haven't they, in London?
Yeah, they tend to make a bit of a nuisance of themselves, don't they?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh dear. I got a world-class vox pop from one of our Romanian friends being interviewed on British TV.
Oh, I was trying to watch this the other day. It won't load.
No coronavirus. There is no coronavirus in Britain, he says Yozis from Romania. But just in case, he says jokingly, he has medication. Vodka. Oh! That's your protection? Protection, yes. You don't think there's any coronavirus? No coronavirus. That's an...
Oh, right. It's definitive.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
I mean, He's either right or he's wrong.
Yeah.
Dr. Bill's back on the scene.
Oh no.
Bill.
Dr. Bill Gates is back on Bloomberg. And, he was brought on Bloomberg to once and for all definitively debunk hydroxychloroquine.
There's a lot of bad information about therapeutics out there. Debunk some of the myths for us, hydroxychloroquine being one of them.
This is an age of science, but sometimes
good job, Bill.
That way, just the idea is about testing and hydroxychloroquine. The numbers are quite clear. It got confused because the trials were done so poorly, but there's lots of good things coming in the therapeutic area that are really proven to work without the severe side effects. So
the extreme pain.
A little bit slow, but a lot of good news to come in that domain.
I thought that was really interesting. He said, yeah, the numbers are bad, but it's confusing because the trials were done so poorly. What does that tell you?
Better.
And then he goes on to say about the horrendous side effects.
Of his own vaccine?
No, of hydroxychloroquine.
Ah, right, okay.
A malaria medication that's been in use for fucking decades. It's one of the safest medications you can take. He's going on about horrendous side effects.
He's getting mixed up, isn't he?
Something's not right there.
Oh, Bill, I feel sorry for him.
Yeah.
He wasn't done.
He should have stayed out of all this nonsense. He does a lot of philanthropic charity work or...
Yeah, toilets.
I don't know why they keep bringing him out to bat, because he's so fucking shit at it.
I know.
Talk about, he's like a night watchman, isn't he?
Is he not just a friend of Michael Bloomberg? And that's why he's on Bloomberg.
Oh, he's everywhere. He's
ubiquitous.
Ubiquitous. Last week we talked about, I said that we're going to start seeing this link between COVID and climate change.
Oh, no.
Hooray!
And if we don't solve the climate problem, do you believe there will be more pandemics, worse pandemics in the future?
Well, that's not the only thing. You'll have incredible instability because your ability to grow food in large parts of the world will be so diminished that you'll literally have hundreds of millions of migrants and you won't have a thriving global economy because you will have degraded the ecosystems. And there is no quick fix to that thing, unlike the magic vaccine that's a mere year to 2 years at most to come up with.
The magic vaccine.
Well done, Bill. You just rescued yourself there.
Yeah, I thought globalists were all about mass immigration and open borders.
Yeah, I know. What does... yeah, I know. That was like a bit of scaremongering, wasn't it? Ooh, we're going to have loads of farm workers coming now. Oh, no. Oh, no.
Yeah, he should be seen and not heard, I think.
Yeah.
Talking of someone who should be seen and not heard, Joe Biden's been let out of his basement.
Oh, no.
Yeah, he's been talking on telly.
Oh.
I have some clips.
Yes. God.
This is Joe talking about the incident in Portland last week. With
the shooting.
Yeah, the gunman. And we talked about it, the Trump supporter who was essentially executed in the street.
Mm-hmm.
So let's hear what Joe thinks about it.
I think what happened in Portland, where one of the Trump guys riding along in vans inciting response is shooting rubber bullets, I guess, or paintballs. Apparently there was someone shot by someone in the crowd with a bullet killed. I think that person should meet the legal requirements of whatever that calls for.
He obviously knows nothing about what's going on.
Yeah, why does he not? Or is he just trying to gloss over it in want for a better of a term?
He's either really poorly informed or he's just completely senile. how he described it is just nothing like what happened. You see the cavalcade going through, it's daylight. And they're driving through the town in a convoy, these Trump supporters.
Right.
The killing happens at night. The guy's walking down the street and someone walks up to him, he's identified as a Trump supporter and killed.
Right.
It's just a complete mischaracterization. Maybe he's just not seen it, or he's unaware. But I think if you're unaware and you haven't seen it, you shouldn't be fucking sticking your head out about it. Maybe. We'll stick with Joe. I've got one. This clip's just called Joe Blathering.
You know, there's a, during World War II, you know, where Roosevelt came up with a thing that, you know, was totally different than it's called, he called it the, you know, the World War II, he had the War Production Board. Come on, man.
I don't know what he's trying to say. I don't know what he's going on about.
Yeah, he had something in World War II, though, didn't he? He had something.
Something, yeah. The World War II something.
Mm-hmm.
Should we? I think this is from last year. I think it's before the COVID crisis, but we've got a clip has surfaced of him talking about gay people.
Oh no.
If you were at a fancy restaurant in Washington 5-6 years ago at an important business meeting, and a gay or lesbian waiter came up, or transgender, spoke with a lisp or demonstrated they were gay or lesbian, and someone at that luncheon table made fun of that person, no one would have said anything.
Lisp.
Oh, what is he doing?
You gotta have a lisp or somehow make it known that you're gay.
Good God.
But I saved the best till last. He's been talking about COVID.
Right.
And he's got important things to say about COVID.
COVID has taken this year, just since the outbreak, has taken more than 100 years. Look, here's the lives. I mean, you think about it. More lives this year than any other year for the past 100 years.
I'm not sure that that's true.
Wow.
Oh my God.
Well, I suppose it is true, actually, isn't it? COVID has taken more lives this year than any other year, definitely.
In the last 100 years?
Yeah, in the last 100 years, yeah. I'd stick my neck on the block and say that.
You're a lying dog-faced pony. Oh, man.
Oh, dear.
I got hairy legs.
We had a big political story in the UK this week, the Tony Abbott debacle.
Oh, debacle, yeah.
What's all this about, Matt?
He's been called out as a misogynist and a homophobe, hasn't he? Tony Abbott. He's the ex Prime Minister of Australia. Mm-hmm. Now I can't remember, but did he have to resign for something, or did he get voted out? Do you know?
I think he got voted out.
So he didn't resign or in like disgrace.
No, I don't think so.
No, that's right then. Then yeah, so he sort of said sort of things that could be conceived as homophobic and misogynistic. Have you got the clip?
It's to do with the trade board, isn't it?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, he's coming in as a special advisor, isn't he? I'm not sure if he's been a SPAD, but he's been the head of the to write trade deals and stuff, because we don't have any expertise anymore, because we were part of the European Union for 40 odd years.
Well, Gove doesn't like experts, does he? So.
No, so
the government's trying to assemble a trade board to try and get us some juicy deals after Brexit, you see.
Yeah, and he's a foreigner.
Yeah. And it was Matt Hancock who was put into bat.
Yes. Matt.
On Sky News with Kay Burley.
Yes.
And this is how it went.
about, and I'm sure you will want to comment on, is Tony Abbott. I can see that you're wearing your NHS Pride badge. I wear mine with pride, is what you've tweeted previously. Tony Abbott, who was the former Prime Minister of Australia, some suggesting that he may well be potentially a UK trade ambassador. He says he feels threatened by homosexuality. He also says elderly people should have been left to die naturally from COVID, and men are better set to exercise authority than women. Is he the right sort of person to represent us?
Well, as far as I understand it, the proposal is that Mr. Abbott supports the UK on trade policy, which is an area in which he's got a huge amount of expertise. You know, I bow to nobody in my support for everybody to love who they love, whoever that is, and well, as you know, and as we've talked about a lot. But I think, you know, we need to have the best experts in the world working in their field. And as the former Prime Minister of Australia, obviously Mr. Abbott has got a huge amount of experience.
Even if he's a homophobic misogynist?
Well, I think that is. I don't think that's true. I haven't seen.
I've just told you what he said. I'm sure you don't support some of his comments. He's a homophobe and he's a misogynist.
Well, he's also an expert in trade.
So one plays off against the other? Really? Is that really what you're saying, Health Secretary? Come on.
Yeah.
Well, no, what I'm saying is that we need experts in different areas, and somebody who's the former Prime Minister of Australia is obviously an enormous expert in the field of trade. It doesn't change my view.
Okay, so we can forgive his comments about women and about letting the elderly die of COVID-19, and about his views on the gay community, even though I believe his sister is gay. We can forgive all of that because he's good at trade.
Yes.
You know, I'm doing everything in my power to prevent a second wave and protect people from coronavirus.
Health Secretary, it's not my question. We've spent 8 minutes talking about that. I'm asking you about whether this is a fit and proper person to represent us as far as trade is concerned, given the views that he holds.
Look, I think, Kay, the best thing to say is that I am totally focused on the coronavirus crisis and the future of the NHS and of social care. That is my area, right? I do know that Mr. Abbott is very good and very experienced in trade. It is clearly a very important decision that the Prime Minister and the Trade Secretary are across, because we do...
Blah, blah, blah. You have misogyny.
Do you think he saw his life flash before his eyes during that interview?
Oh, she had quite a scowl on her face.
She did, didn't she? She was mad.
Very mad. Yeah.
He should have owned it and just said, yeah, people are fast, and this is the end of the cancel culture. So that would have started the end of it. A bit of ballsy standing up against the media.
It got me wondering if I could get on the
wet.
Sorry, go on.
Sorry, Ben.
I was just saying he didn't because he's wet.
He is, let's be fair, he's the ex-Prime Minister of one of our closest allies.
Yeah.
Elected, and he did complete 3 trade agreements that were languishing on the desks of public servants for over a decade with China, Japan, and South Korea.
So it just happened a lot upon a manila folder.
Yeah.
Looking through some offices.
Guys, there's nobody been doing anything with this for years.
No, evidently not. People come out to defend him.
Ah, right, okay.
Yeah, I've got a clip here from Sky News Australia. And it's the former Speaker of the House, Bronwyn Bishop, who came to his defence.
What's your response, first of all, to this criticism of Tony Abbott?
I think it's disgusting. The man is neither of the things that is being described. And indeed, most of this seems to stem back to Julia Gillard's so-called misogyny speech. And if I've got one regret, it is that I didn't call a point of order on her when she was making that speech, because it was clearly out of order. But the point is that Tony Abbott has a fine track record with regard to trade, and he has a good record as a father of 3 girls who has had chiefs of staff who've been female, who I have known for over 3 decades and have never, ever seen him have any of those traits of being misogyny. So it is just a disgraceful character assassination, trying to destroy someone by people who are clearly political opponents. And unfortunately, when you have firm opinions and you have socialists who are criticising you, they will stoop that low.
Well, Phil, what's the truth? Is he good at trade or isn't he good at trade?
Well, we're going to find out because he has been appointed.
Yeah, he has, hasn't he? Yeah, he wasn't going to get binned for that, was he? I don't think.
No. I think fucking our Prime Minister said probably worse.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Last
this
weekend.
week.
Yeah.
He'll feel right at home in British politics.
Yeah.
I know.
I forgot about Boris.
A few people came. His sister put a post on Twitter defending him. About
Is that his gay sister then, I assume?
Gay, yeah.
Who's also a woman.
Yes.
And one of his former chiefs of staff is a presenter on Sky News Australia.
Right.
And she did a piece defending him. Apparently, every one of his chiefs of staff have been female. It was just interesting. It was funny, really. It's just the way Kay goes in. Just, what's it? Your sister's first real boyfriend who had a car, Matt Hancock.
Yeah.
Tries to disembowel him live on TV. It's quite.
And she did.
It works.
Yeah, works for
She
me.
did. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, good.
Good.
Have we anything to add?
No, that's it.
I'm spent. I had a story about David Blaine, but I can't really be bothered.
Okay.
Hear about what he did?
No.
Have you ever read Roald Dahl's The Twits?
Yeah.
I have, I think.
And one of the first tricks that Mr. Twit plays on Mrs. Twit is he ties her feet to the ground and ties helium balloons to her.
Right.
And she floats up into the air.
Okay.
On helium balloons. And that's what David Blaine did.
Is that how he did his thing?
Oh, great. I might as well. I'll play it.
Is that how he did his levitation?
We've seen it in the movies. Today, a magician proved it was possible. David Blaine floating over the Arizona desert, fueled by 50 balloons.
Oh.
Hanging on to helium.
It just feels like I'm floating in the air.
Magician David Blaine, flying 30 minutes attached to 50 balloons, high in the Arizona sky. A stunt inspired by Disney and Danny Deckchair, this flight was crafted and choreographed for YouTube.
What I want to do is I want to grab that rig of balloons and I want to go floating all the way up into the sky.
The final balloon added by his daughter.
Perfect.
I'm letting go.
You go, let go. Let it fly.
Sunglasses staying on as his feet came off the ground.
That's going to take me up. Just be ready to go. Will you spin me?
Progressively dropping weights to climb higher, attaching a parachute and oxygen mask.
And it's on you. We're all quiet here.
Before dropping himself. Parachuting the 7 kilometers back to Earth.
Is he there? Yes. Yeah, beautiful.
Charles Croucher, 9 News.
2 things there, Phil. 1, Baumgartner did it better.
Yeah.
And 2, helium is a precious resource needed for things like MRI scanners and that. It's a finite resource, and we're running out of it.
Really?
So,
where'd you get helium from?
It's from rocks and shit. It's not a man-made thing.
You cannot manufacture it?
No, it's an element.
It's made in the center of stars.
Yeah. Yes, it is. Yeah. So, don't waste it. There was none in Asda the other day when I was trying to buy a helium balloon for my
I bought loads of tanks of helium from
I had to buy
Morrison's.
a tank. They didn't have one where they just fill your balloon. I had to purchase a party tank.
So, hang on a minute.
Here comes the science bit.
Helium comes from rocks.
Yeah, it comes from. Well, feels right. It comes from the heart of stars.
Yeah, that's where all elements are made, isn't it? But is it? Isn't there's helium in rocks?
Not all rocks, no.
But is there like, you know, you have like ore and shit. There's like helium ore.
It's not to Bill.
Yeah, it's not like fracking, is it?
So there's actually deposits of helium.
Yeah.
In the Earth's crust.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
We can fact check it, but I'm fairly sure that's how you get helium, and it's certainly not something you can make.
Okay.
It doesn't. Nothing degrades into helium, and it's not a compound; it's an element.
Mm.
So, back to hydrogen.
Right. Okay.
Excellent. Well, I think we should call that a win.
I'm really quiet.
Yeah, you're really quiet, Phil. You're like under a small glass.
Mm.
Well, never mind.
All right. Fine.
Okay. Fine then.
You not hear me?
No,
Not
it's
really.
really quiet.
Well,
no effects.
It just keeps saying it. Well, okay.
next week we've got Eric Klein coming on.
Eric Clapton, everyone. You heard it clearly. Eric Clapton on the show next week.
Can't wait.
Like a judgment day and terminating mode, like.
All right, well, fuck off.
I got hairy legs.
Literally a communist.
Anything to add?
No, goodbye.
Turn your mic up.
Here's more from Dick.
All right,
Back off the mic.
See you next week.
Hi. Yeah, really.
Drink. Can't have children with the ball.
I'm literally a communist.
Great.
Oh, look. It says, oh, we're still recording. Nearly all of our helium is extracted from natural gas, Ben.